everybody. It is 10:30. Welcome to Evernew. I think we're going to have some extra people today. A lot of people just found out about Evernew recently, so I think we're going to get some new viewers today. How are you doing, Hannah?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Kris?
I'm good. Oh, let's introduce us. Hannah is in New Jersey. I'm in Tacoma, underneath Mount Rainier, as you can see. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Hannah.
I'm a Star Trek fan, D. Kelly fan. I grew up in a theatrical family.
Yes, definitely.
You know,
and they have
what else
more
do they
fun.
need to know?
They have more fun than most families I know about. My gosh, they're always doing such cool things. And on their Facebook page, you can follow along with her. It's so much fun. For this show, Hannah and I, of course, we talked to our usual listeners and asked them what they wanted more of. And what the consensus was, they like the every other week format that we've had. They want to keep doing it every other Saturday. And they wanted they wanted more DeForest Kelley stories. So I have marked more of them in my book so I can, do some excerpts from that. They want to see more of Amy Yulin. Amy Yulin was with us 3 times last year. One time she co-hosted with me because Hannah had family obligations, and she co-hosted with me, and we showed a lot of pictures of her time working with Star Trek actors and working in Of Gods and Men. So we're going to have her back at least several more times, as much as she's available in 2023. Of course, we have the Celestis Enterprise flight coming up in January or February. This is my official Enterprise sweatshirt for that, in case it's cold in Florida that time of year. And I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to say. Did I cover everything we talked about that we want to do for Evernew in 2023? I think so. Those were
I think so.
Oh, and look at here. This is Sadie Elf. Sadie Elf's new.
Yeah, I brought her up. She started crying.
She's
her
new Christmas outfit. Is she wanting you?
She probably wants to leave my bedroom.
Oh, well, you can let her leave the bedroom. You think she has to go potty?
I don't think so.
Okay. She is so cute in that. Oh my gosh.
She gets excited when you bring it out too.
Does she?
Oh yeah.
That's very cool.
You want to go around?
All right. We have 4. Oh my gosh, we have 4 comments already. Let's see who's here. Hi, Kris. Hi, Hannah. Yay, that's Tina in Russia.
Tina.
Hey, Tina. Woo! We're glad you're here. Jano is here. Squirrel Lake. Hi.
Jano.
Cookie Sword is here.
Yes, Cookie Sword.
My background is actually taken from Ording, Washington, which is like the gateway, the foothills to Mount Rainier. And this time of year, they string up Christmas lights, and it just looks lovely. So I thought I'd put a picture up there. Thank you. Jenna Wicks in UK. Hi.
Hey, Janet.
So cute. That's your dog.
She is.
And look at this.
She knows it.
Hi, angels. Thank you. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Hannah. Okay, there's our hi's. You have some joyride?
Yeah. Wednesday, my parents, Abby and I, took a trip up to New York City.
Oh.
So that was my first time there. Megan was not there. She would not have enjoyed it.
Uh-huh. What did you do?
We saw Radio City Rockettes.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
And yeah.
Wow. Were they outside, or did you go to an event?
No, we went to an event.
Very cool.
It was...
Is it an ice show? Is it an ice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really nice show. I had never seen the Rockettes, doing a show. I had just seen like a dance or two from the Macy's Thanksgiving parade. So I thought it was going to be dance after dance after dance. But that wasn't what happened. Yeah, they had little stories going on, and there was like a few minute gap between each dance number, so they would have like some singing going on, and they would have this guy come out who was supposed to be Santa Claus, and he was adorable. Like he got the persona just right. Like, sweet, jolly old man. You know, he's just happy to be here. So yeah, that was.
I've never been. Is it like an Ice Capades? Is it on ice?
No,
it's not. Okay, is it stage show?
No, it's not on ice. It is a stage show. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Anything else?
I think that's pretty much it for my joyride as far as that goes. Nothing too big has been happening.
Okay.
Other than that, so.
Okay. The only thing I have is as far as Joy, I think a couple of weeks ago when we met, I told you Maggie, my old goat, was feeling under the weather, and I thought I might not have her for too much longer. Yeah. As it turned out, I think she was just having some tummy issues because I fed her some baking soda, which they say to offer to goats when they're feeling a little out of sorts. And that seems to have straightened her up because she started being bossy again. And, you know, she was just isolating herself off away from the other goats, which is unlike her because she's the herd boss. And now she's back to, you know, putting people out of the way to get her hay and stuff. She was eating all along. She never stopped eating, but she was like careful about it. I mean, she wouldn't take the treats, which is like unheard of for Maggie. And now she's all back to saying, oh yeah, I want that too. So I thought I was going to lose her just due to old age. As it turns out, I think she was just having some tummy problems, and she's doing much, much better now.
Do you think she ate something, or do you think it was a little goat bug?
It could have been a goat bug. It seemed to me like, I don't want to say she was bloated, because she wasn't bloated, but she looked like she was fatter than she should be for the amount of food I was giving them, because this time of year, all they're getting is the food I'm giving them. There's nothing out and about for them to eat. I thought, wow, she's looking just, I didn't want to say bloated, because bloated is a different kind of a look, but I think she was having some, you know, they have 4 stomachs. And I think I think one of her stomachs was just doing something weird on her, and she's like, no, I don't think I want that. Ookie boo boo down my throat. No. And now it's like, yeah, I want that, and I want that, and I want that. And oh, yeah, I'll take some of that too. So I think she's all back. John Bowersocks, I don't know where you are. Where is John? This is his birthday. He may not be coming today. Happy birthday to John Bowersocks, who is John Bart 101. For those of you who have been along and hearing about this, we have a love from Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. We have 5 people on various MDME media pages. So anywho, what I wanted to do with those of you who are listening, since we're from all different countries, literally, Russia, Europe, here. Oh, you know what? Our New Zealand folks aren't here yet. Anyhow, I wanted to talk about what your holiday traditions are this time of year. If you would weigh in on that, let us know what you do. Because up here where Hannah and I are in this latitude, we very often get snow, and we think of Santa as on a sleigh with reindeer. But you guys down in, Helen's here. Helen from New Zealand, and I guess
yes, she's here.
You're hearing this. We want to hear from you, Helen, what your holiday traditions are this time of year, because you don't have snow, you don't have white Christmases, you have beach Christmases, and I'd like to hear some of what you do during the traditions. If you can just type it in there, that would be great.
Yeah, to me that's really interesting. Like I've listened. It's not New Zealand, but I've listened to Australian Christmas songs, and it's so weird because they're talking about like Santa on a dune buggy,
right?
You know, like that just feels like so upside down, but of course to them, you know,
right? And
Santa, you know,
yes. And Tina in Russia, I know you're kind of in the same latitudes. We're all experiencing snow, but what traditions do you have in Russia at Christmas time? If you could type that in, that would be great. And while we're waiting for those to come in, I want to let you know tomorrow, for those of you who are interested, I'm going to be on another show and I'm going to put the banner up for the link to it. It's called Siempre Radio. And I'm going to leave that up for a while because you'll have to write that all down. That's a big, long number. It's a Facebook group, but it's a radio show. And I appeared there last year talking about LGBTQ issues, but this time they want me back. They want us to talk about self-care issues, because during these troubling times, it's really, really easy to get stressed or depressed and various other angry and all kinds of stuff. And so tomorrow, and that one starts at 9:30. I guess it will probably go an hour. We're going to be talking about something I have put into an acronym, which is ACT, and ACT stands for affirmation, contemplation, and treatment. So affirmation is reminding yourself of all the good things about yourself. Contemplation can be prayer, it can be meditation, it can be a gratitude journal. Just put you in a contemplative mood to remove you from the stress, any stress that's in your life. And then treatment would be very, very individual, depending on what your individual issues are. If you have depression, you would be doing something different. If you're an overachiever, your action might be inaction. You might need to stop and just, sit. People who are anxious may need to do some centering things to say, I'm in the room. There's no tiger here. A lot of people who are anxious tend to curl into a fetal position on the bed. And I always say, no, do the opposite. Go ahead and get on the bed, but spread eagle, spread out, belly up with your arms and your legs out. In other words, open yourself to the universe and see what happens. What will happen is nothing. There's nothing in that room to bother you. There's nothing. It's just now. And another thing that we often do, I think, is we borrow from the past and have regrets, and we turn ourselves into little pretzels saying, oh, I wish I'd done that better. I wish I had been better. I wish I had known more. I wish I had this, that, and the other thing. Or we're so busy thinking about the future that we get anxious about that. And a lot of the treatment for everybody is just, no, what I want you to do is focus on now. What's happening right now? How do you feel? Oh, guess what? Sitting here looking around the room, I feel comfortable. This is my place. This is my sanctuary. I'm safe here. And to help people learn that, hey, when things start to happen, I can take a moment or several moments and recenter myself and say, okay, wait a minute. I'm imagining something that isn't here. I'm worrying about something that I can't do anything about, or I can't do it right now. Say I have to do something Monday and I'm thinking about it on Saturday. Well, no, just put it off. Think about it on Monday. Sufficient, like the Bible says, sufficient unto the day are the worries thereof. So anyhow, we're just going to do some self-help stuff like that tomorrow. And if those of you who have any issues like that would like to join in, that would be great. This is where to go to do it. I think it's called, the actual Facebook page is like Tacoma Universal Radio or something like that. But this is the actual link for you to do that. I'll leave that up for a while. Let's go back up to comments. No snowy scenes on our Christmas cards. More Santa doing a barbecue, holidaying at the beach, and with a surfboard.
Does he still wear like the coat, or does he have a different costume?
Yeah, what is it? What are his costumes like? Christmas Day is food. After exchanging presents, cold buffet and trifle and pavlova. Of course, we made pavlova when she was here. Yum, yum, yum. Very much a family day. Yes, that's pretty common, I think, no matter where you celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
Let go, let God. That's kind of like it. Yeah. Red shorts. Okay. Santa wears red shorts.
Nice.
Yum. That's my friend Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa. Lisa took it home and put it in the freezer. I don't know if she still got some of it, but we ate most of it. But we couldn't. Yeah, we'll see. Hope you're feeling better, Lisa. She's having about a week. She's having a down week. But she's here, so that's telling me she's good. Feeling better about that. So, do any of you want to join us live? If any of you, nope, all good, all gone. It's all gone. The Pavlova's all gone. Yeah, she needs to take that day off because she has a heavy duty job that requires a lot of heavy lifting. And when you're feeling puny, you don't have that. You don't have the stamina for that. So we're glad you're feeling better and feeling good enough to be here. If any of you would like to join us, I'm going to put the banner up so you can come and join us live. It's right here. This is it right here. In the meanwhile, I guess what I'll do, oh, you know what? Did I tell you, or did I just tell Hannah earlier? I just got my DNA test results back from this CRI genetics place. And I think everybody should do this because the interesting thing about it is you find out that your DNA literally is pretty much everywhere, all over the planet. So it's kind of hard to start thinking of yourself as a nationality anymore, so much as a universal being whose ancestors have been pretty much everywhere. I found out that before planes, trains, and automobiles, my ancestors were literally either tradesmen, working along the well-known ancient trade routes, or they were, I hope not, but may have been colonizers who were going around and, throwing indigenous populations out so they could take over. But my most recent ancestry analysis says that I'm 91% European, but this includes UK, Germany, Italy, Scandinavia, Spain, and France. And my extended ancestry, I am related to, I don't know if you guys know about this, but if you're into archaeology, there was a mummy named Juanita in Peru who was sacrificed to the volcano gods in about 1450, sometime between 1450 and 1480. And she was discovered, the ice caps were melting, and they discovered this perfectly mummified body. They didn't do mummification. This was just a natural mummification because of where she died and how she was immediately apparently encapsulated in ice. She was completely preserved. Her hair was there. They could find out what was in her stomach. It was as if she had died 3 weeks ago. Okay. If you want to look her up on Wikipedia, here is a link about her. She was 14 to 15 years old. She was sacrificed. Apparently it was the elite, healthiest, cream of the crop children that were sacrificed because they were considered innocent. They were considered prime, and they were considered the healthiest among them to be sacrificed to the volcano gods because the volcanoes were erupting and they wouldn't stop and they wouldn't stop, and they sacrificed her to this. Anyhow, I'm related to her. I'm literally in her, and I'm also related to Eva. Okay, I can't think of her name. Longoria, Eva Longoria, the actress and philanthropist. But the interesting thing is, on the advanced ancestry, I'm European, South Asian, I'm Indian, Punjabi, Sri Lankan, and Bengali. I'm admixed American, Peruvian, Colombian, Mexican, and Puerto Rican. I'm East Asian, Chinese, Day, Kin, Vietnamese, Japanese, Southern Han, and Northern Han Chinese, and I'm African from Nigeria. So, I mean, literally, the DNA, my DNA hagiography is what it's called, is like all over the place. And it's amazing how all of a sudden, when you realize you're from these places, you get an intense interest in finding out more. I want to find out more about this mummy, that was sacrificed because she was a relative of mine. And I'm like, whoa, did she know? I mean, did she feel special? I mean, did she feel like she was going, how did religion play into her life that she could do something like that, that you could agree? Did she agree? Did she agree to do it, or was she forced to do it? Like, you're the best, you're going. You just also suddenly you want to go, how did that happen? It turns out that the Incas, before a sacrifice, would kind of get them very, very drunk and stoned, really, really, so they almost didn't know they were on the planet anymore. In fact, they later perfected it to where the person kind of just passed away from a stupor, so they didn't have to kill them. But in her case, they made her very, very drunk, very, very, out of this world feeling, and then they clubbed her, gave her a brain hemorrhage, and killed her that way. So, it's like, oh man, and all of a sudden this mummy is like my relative, and I care about that deeply, that kind of thing. And I have always felt like I was a citizen of the world. I've never had any like racial animosities or any nationalistic particular, nationalism thing. That has never, I'm, as a Star Trek kid and an astronaut age kid, I looked at that planet from the moon and went, we're all in this together. And I've always felt that way. But then to realize that it isn't just a feeling, it's in my DNA to feel that way. It's in my DNA to say we are all part of this. And it makes it super special. So I encourage those of you who wouldn't be afraid to find out what your background is to figure that out, to find out, because it's very fascinating. I'm going to go back to comments. Okay. I want to offer promotion of your channel viewers. Yeah, okay, that's spam. We are all related. Absolutely. So yeah, I was hoping to see if I was related to D, because they said I had some Indian in me. Now, again, this is only my mother's side of the genealogy. My father's side, I haven't even delved into yet. So there's probably more to still be uncovered based on my dad's hagiography, what they call it. But this is what I found out as a result of my mom's. So I use CRI Genetics, which is apparently it's one of the most highly regarded. It's pricey, but this time of year with the holidays, this is not an ad. This is not a paid ad. This time of year, I got it like for 68% off because they're often holiday promotions. So if you go to crigenetics.com, you can probably jump in there and get some of this done for yourself if you want to. It's totally fascinating. It also gives you how many generations back and for how many generations you have been, I go back 32 generations on the, not the English stuff, but on the other far away stuff. I go back, and then it also gives you can click on a link and it'll tell you what's going on during the history of the times when your ancestors were there. And again, wow. It's in every 20-year segments because a generation is considered 20 years. So it's in 20-year segments, and it'll tell you how your DNA dispersed, during literal time periods. And then you can look at the history and why did they leave there? Oh my gosh, there was a civil war, or there was a invasion, or there was this, that, and the other thing, and they left. You can extrapolate from that. Well, they left because they were under siege or whatever. They were refugees. So it's very interesting. Anyway, I went off on a bit of a tangent, but that's because I'm very passionate about it at the moment. Since there are no other comments coming in, I promised more D stories. I went into my older book about DeForest Kelley, the first one that came out right after the September 11th attack on the World Trade Center. It didn't get a lot of promotion because I wasn't feeling like promoting it either. I was too busy being upset by the attack. But a lot of that book had to come out, the last part, because I wanted to add in 55 pages of really, really fun and funny stuff into the 2015 edition. So I took a lot of the last part out because it dealt with Dee's decline and, you know, his hospitalization. And the first time I wrote it, I thought it's important that fans know he didn't suffer inordinately and he died when he died, so that they could kind of be in the hospital room with him, see that he was well cared for, that he was still funny, that he was still comfortable, he was kept comfortable, you know. So since it came out so soon after he passed away, I knew the fans wanted to know that. But then when it comes out 20 years after that, fans pretty well either know or are not that concerned about it anymore. And I wanted to take the sad part, the last part, pretty much out and put in a lot of the funny stuff that I hadn't put in the first one, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to lift the book to read it, you know. So this is a bit, this is an extended thing, and it's from the first version. It's called DeForest Kelley, Harvest of Memories, My Life and Times with a Remarkable Gentleman. Actually, you can still get it, but they are exorbitantly high. They're like collector's items now. You don't need to. I think the second edition is actually better. This edition is really, really, I don't want to say hard to get through, but you are in the hospital room with him, and it can be, you know, I was careful to be sensitive to everything, but I didn't want to unduly upset or, you know, unduly explain things that, you know, that they're better left private, you know. That's, you know. So anyhow, this isn't what went into this. What went into this that I'm about to read, you know, is perfectly okay. The only thing I got about it was, oh, I wish I hadn't read the last part because it made me so sad. And I'm like, well, I get that. I mean, I wish I hadn't gone through it either because it made me so sad, but it was what happened. And I wanted people to realize that he had a good quality of life. And the thing that upset him most was that he would be leaving Carolyn, and he knew how that would devastate her. His chief anxiety was, oh my gosh, Carolyn is going to she's not going to be able to deal with this. That was his biggest concern. Anyhow, as you know, who have read the book, my mother had brain cancer not long before Dee fell ill with cancer. So this part is, I was trying to find a place, a starting and an ending place for this, and it turned out I kind of had to do all of it because it segues from one end to the other. So please bear with me. It's probably going to be 20 minutes of reading, but it's mostly Dee related. So here we go. You heard the story about Dee telling Mom, you're a beautiful woman and you're going to be just fine. You know, the hug thing. This happened immediately after that. So by May 6th, the horizon for Mom was becoming ominously dark and cloudy. Carolyn called to say, Dee and I were very sorry to hear about your mom. The MRI specialist had noticed something more going on in Mom's brain. It was too small to be seen as a recurrence of the deadly tumor, but something was going on at that location. I let them know that Mom was handling the new information just great. She doesn't seem to be at all afraid and is directing her medical team to wait until they know something more. If they wait a month and find out it's coming back, they can go in and take it out and do whatever it needs to be doing all in one procedure instead of opening her head up twice. Carolyn said, she seems to be the kind of person who has her head on straight about things. I assured her she's amazing in that way. I asked her if she was scared, and she said she doesn't feel any differently about dying now than she did before this whole thing started. It's going to happen someday. I'll live until I die. Very straightforward and with full acceptance. She told me the drugs to keep her comfortable are great and that she didn't suffer a bit with the tumor taking up so much of her forehead or after the surgery. She said she's lucky. She has what she has and not a more painful type. She feels sorry for the little kids who have cancer and the young newlyweds and the young parents with kids who have it. She's just remarkable all the way around. Carolyn listened to this soliloquy and agreed, yes, she is. Then she asked me, how's your dad handling it? I said, oh, okay for the time being, as well as can be expected of a control freak. She chuckled at that. We discussed how I was emotionally torn between staying in Southern California to live and work and my duty to my mother in Washington State. After a lot of soul searching, I decided to stay in Los Angeles and fly home whenever possible. Carolyn said, I'm glad you decided to stay. I think it's smart. but I know it's hard to be so far away from them at a time like this. I said, yes, it is. The rest of the family gets Mom for hopefully another 2 years. I get her for 30 days if I'm lucky. That's a terrible feeling. She said, I'll bet it is. In June, Carolyn called again in response to a letter I had written them saying she was sad to hear Mom talking about her own cremation already. I said, well, it was a funny conversation, so it was okay. They are going to implant radioactive electrodes in her brain next week sometime. I told you that in the letter. And they said that if she dies before a year is up, she can't be cremated because the process would release radioactive particles into the air. So I told her, oh, good. That means you can't possibly die for at least a year because you said you want to be cremated. And she thought about that and said, that's right. I'm safe for a whole year. That's when she told me, if there's such a thing as reincarnation, I want to come back as one of your pets. Carolyn laughed at that and said, I know why. I'd like that too. I continued, that's when she got a little serious and said she doesn't care what happens with her ashes, but she wants at least part of them in my bedroom near Deacon's ashes so she can keep an eye on me and be my guardian angel. Carolyn said, could you do that? I said, to tell you the truth, at first the idea kind of gave me pause, but now I think, by golly, if that's what she wants, she gets it. And now I even love the idea. She said, well, I hope all this talk of cremation is premature. I think she's going to beat her cancer. I cautioned her, it's a long shot. It's the longest shot in the field of cancer, I think, but of course, we're hopeful too. A few days later, I had to call the Kellys and thank them for a signed photo Dee had sent to Mom prior to her entry into the hospital for the clinical trials procedure. Carolyn answered the phone, so I started to thank her, but she stopped me and said, just a minute, let me get Dee. Dee, it's Kris. She has news about her mother. Dee got on. And I continued, I wish you could have heard Mom's voice. She was so tickled. Thank you, Dee. You made her day and her tomorrow and her weekend by the sound of her voice. She's taking it to the hospital, so she gets the royal treatment. He chuckled and said, it works that way sometimes. I said, I know it does. It did with Dad. He said, well, I'm glad she enjoyed it. Just a minute, Carolyn wants you again. I told Carolyn Mom's surgery was scheduled for the next day, and she said, we're holding all good thoughts here for her. I said, I'm sure it will be fine. She's so positive and gung-ho. She said, she's a great lady. I said, yes, she is. And a very happy lady, too, with that photo in her mitt. Carolyn called the next day to see how the surgery went. I told her it went well and gave her the good news that the surgery could offer her a year or more of good status quo quality of life with other protocols that might also extend her life after the radio protocol wore out. She was thrilled to hear about that. Then I told her Dee's photo made such a hit at the hospital and Mom is getting such good treatment as a result that she says she's thinking of becoming a hypochondriac. Carolyn howled at that. When Dee called to thank me for his Father's Day gift on June 15th, his throat was coated with the gift, Trader Joe's bittersweet chocolate. I didn't recognize who was calling as a result, but it was certainly a happy voice. I could tell that much. Hello, he began. Hi. I sounded more non-committal than I customarily was with him, so he figured out the problem and identified himself. It's DeForest. I'm eating your chocolate. I'm eating your birthday chocolate. Thank you. And hey, that's wonderful news about your mother. I said, yes, isn't it fantastic? She stuck with us for at least another year. He said, just terrific. Oh, and congratulations on your upcoming debut on E! Entertainment. They wanted to interview Dee's star polisher. He said, you can do your stand-up routines and become a star. I laughed and said, oh, right, that's what they're after me for, not your star. Then Dee said, but my main purpose in calling you today is to thank you for the candy bars and to ask you to give our love to your mother. I said, I will, thanks, and thank you for calling. The E! Interview was canceled for at least a month, just a day before I was scheduled to do it. I was glad because I had fallen ill with a bad cold that suddenly turned into bronchitis. So on the morning I had originally agreed to do the interview, I was instead in an emergency room in Burbank at St. Joseph Hospital, being rehabilitated and sent home with a prescription and doctor's orders for lots of rest and no activity for several days. When the E! reporter called to cancel the interview, she let slip some information she shouldn't have. She said the cancellation was due to the fact that DeForest was planning to come down to your star and surprise you while you were being interviewed by us. but he isn't feeling well just now, and we want to wait for his availability. I hadn't known Dee was feeling ill again. Neither Dee nor Carolyn had alluded to it in months, so the news startled me in two ways. I was tickled pink that he wanted to surprise me, but I wondered how ill he was feeling and whether or not I should let the Kellys know that I knew about the upcoming surprise. I decided to play dumb, deciding that Dee or Carolyn would tell me whatever they wanted me to know when they wanted me to know it. After all, the interview was still on. It would just be delayed a month or so. That didn't sound terribly ominous, and I remained giddy because Dee thought enough of me to want to surprise me in such a public way on television in front of millions of viewers. Yikes and egads. In the phone call with Carolyn, I said, it's lucky the interview was canceled for a month because no way would I have been able to show up this morning. When the reporter called yesterday, I didn't feel badly enough at that time to decline. So they would have arrived there this morning and I wouldn't have been there. That would have been a fiasco. At that point, my concern for Dee's condition overrode my earlier decision to keep quiet regarding what I'd heard from the reporter. So I said, I heard Dee isn't feeling well. That comment seemed to jar Carolyn, and she asked me almost irritably, where did you hear that? I said, the reporter from E told me that Dee was planning to come down to the Star and surprise me, but that he isn't feeling well, and that's why they decided to cancel it for now. Carolyn queried, did she? I said, yes. So there it was. I added, I didn't think she should have told me about the surprise, but she did. That's how I found out he doesn't feel well. Carolyn said, well, he'll be feeling better in time for next month. Then she added, now I want you to stay down, take good care of you, and have a good trip to Washington if I don't get the chance to call you before you go. I said, I love you so much. She said, I love you too, Kris. Take very good care of yourself. I made it to Washington, bronchitis and all. We had a wonderful visit, except for two serious health emergencies, which, of course, I immediately reported in letters to the Kellys as humorously as I was able. I wrote, having a wonderful time. Get me out of here. People keep trying to die on me. The first incident was when my nephew Phil was stung by a bee in Cle Elum on the 4th of July and went into anaphylactic shock. Thanks to the first responder emergency training I had just received weeks before at Warner Brothers to become a volunteer emergency warden on the lot, I recognized the crisis within minutes and insisted that Dad and I drive him the 6 miles to the emergency room. On the way in, Dad's car stalled and died. Dad got out to try and restart it. Phil's entire body had become swollen by this time, only 2 or 3 minutes into the trip, and he told us he couldn't see or breathe. Thank God, instead of waiting even a moment to see if Dad could fix the car, I advised Phil to relax as much as he was able and started flagging down passing motorists until one of them agreed to drive Phil the rest of the way to the hospital. Dad and I helped Phil into this small 2-seater sports car, and off they went, the driver and Phil, on the final 4 miles of the journey to the emergency room. I said a prayer skyward that they would make it in time and turned back to see how Dad was doing. I wanted to get going again to be sure Phil had made it to the hospital in time. Dad's car still wouldn't start. Feeling downright frantic, I started to walk back to the campfire, trying to remember to go slowly because I was still compromised with bronchitis. Frustrated after just a few minutes by my slow progress, I hitched a ride with a stranger back to the campsite. I quickly told everyone what had gone wrong and what we had done about it. Then several of us, including Mom and Wendy Rebar, Phil's girlfriend and future wife, got into Phil's car and headed for the hospital, leaving Dad at the roadside still working on the disabled vehicle. When we got to the emergency room, the dear woman who had driven Phil in met us at the door, quickly saying, he made it. He'll be all right. Crying with relief, I hugged her and said, thank God. I was wearing a Touched by an Angel t-shirt, and the woman who agreed to help him had been on her way to Mass. Then she told me the doctor said we made it here just in time. 2 more minutes, and he couldn't have done anything for him. I sat down hard on the bench, feeling enormously drained suddenly. Mom noticed the paleness of my face and said to someone, get Kris an orange soda right away. I swallowed it down and recovered soon thereafter. The next incident happened on the way to Tacoma from Cle Elum 2 days later. I noticed that the surgical site on Mom's skull was becoming red and puffy. She insisted that she felt just fine and that it was absolutely nothing to worry about, probably a little too much sunshine. All the way across the pass, the swelling increased and the redness spread. I suggested we go directly to Seattle to our doctor's emergency room rather than return to Tacoma, but Mom didn't want to go, and Dad, for once, didn't override her decisions. By the time we got to Tacoma, I insisted that we at least call the Seattle hospital and report the condition. My sister did that. The nurse on call advised us to watch for an elevated temperature above 101 degrees and any confusion or clumsiness on Mom's part. By this time it was 8:30 at night, and I thought, well, we'll all be asleep in an hour or so. How will we be able to tell if she's confused or clumsy if she's asleep? Within the hour, Mom's temperature was at 101 degrees, and she began to have chills and started to behave a little weird. Jackie called again, and the triage nurse said, bring her in. So we piled into the car once again and headed north to Seattle. 12 hours later, following a spinal tap and various other tests, it was decided that Mom had an infection at the site of one of her radioactive implants. A course of treatment was followed, and she eventually recovered. The doctor later reported that anecdotal evidence revealed that people who get brain infections during brain cancer treatments for some unknown reason have a longer than normal lifespan in comparison to patients who don't get infections. Dad, who had been blaming himself for the delay in getting Mom to the Seattle, was glad to hear that. When the vacation, or the disaster prevention period, I should say, was over, I flew home to Burbank. Carolyn called to welcome me home within an hour of my arrival. Then she said, we were sorry to hear that so much of your vacation was filled with emergencies. I said very sincerely, let's just thank God I was up there. I might not have my nephew today if I hadn't been. That emergency rescue and first aid training, that's good stuff. Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink. The next comment out of her mouth scared me. We had some news ourselves while you were away. I said, oh no, you did? And held my breath. Yes. While you were away, Dee was in the hospital again. I said, oh no. She said they removed more tumors, this time from his intestinal tract. I said, oh God. I asked, is he back home yet? And she said, oh yes. I asked if there was anything I could do for them. And she said, if I can think of anything, I'll let you know. Dee says to say thank you for the Trader Joe's chocolate. I asked, can he still eat that? She said, oh yes. He has no restrictions on his diet at all. The doctors want him to drink 8-ounce glasses of water every day, but he can't stomach water at all. It's like medicine to him. He just can't drink it. He drinks orange juice in the morning, and thank God he's still drinking that one beer every night. I told her, you're both in my prayers. She thanked me for that and said, I'll call you again tomorrow. I said, okay, I love you. She said, bye-bye. Unasked, but feeling an immediate need to do something proactive and helpful, I drove around the valley to various grocery and drug stores and gathered a variety of small bottles of Gatorade and several packs of various kinds of nutritional supplements. I made sure the nutritional supplements were chocolate. Then I dropped them into a huge grocery bag and deposited them on the front porch of the Kelly's home. I didn't ring the doorbell. I knew they'd find the care package in the morning. The next morning when I got to work, there was a voicemail message. This is DeForest, Kris. Will you give me a call when you get a moment? Thank you. I returned the call. He said, I'm calling to thank you for all the goodies and to ask if you make round trips. I thought that meant he liked the stuff I found for him. And I said enthusiastically, I sure do. He said, I want to thank you so much for the thought and for your efforts, but I'll never drink it. The only thing I can tolerate is orange juice and my nightly beer. I said, well, if those are what you can tolerate, how about drinking more of what you like? I could get you some O'Douls or Sharps. They're non-alcoholic, so you could drink it all day long. He joked, you want to take all the fun out of life, don't you? And chuckled. I clarified my intention with, I mean, you can drink the non-alcoholic variety real often during the day without falling on your butt, and then drink the usual one at night. See? He said, oh, I see, and chuckled again. Then he said, but thank you very much again for thinking of me in that sweet way. I really appreciate all the time and thought and trouble you went to do that for me. I said, it was absolutely no trouble at all. None. He said, when shall I put this back out for you? Sunday? I said, if it's 200 foot before then, I'll get it sooner. Sunday, if not. He said, no, Sunday's fine. Thanks again. The following Sunday, August 3rd, I dropped off a letter, more Trader Joe's chocolate bars, and some other information I had received via the internet, and then giggled when I saw the note Dee had placed on the outgoing beverage sack. Dear Kris, thanks for your thoughtfulness. I decided to keep the Sustacal as I am on a high protein routine and too cheap to give it back. That same afternoon, Dee called again. I picked up the phone and said, hello. He said, thank you for the candy bars. I said, gee, you're very welcome. He said, I just read the internet thing you delivered here this morning, and I want to respond to it. I want you to know what the facts are so you won't be tied up in knots over it. As Carolyn told you, they took a tumor out of my intestinal tract, and they zapped a couple of spots on my liver. The throat cancer rumor on the internet is entirely false, and I'm on a drug that's supposed to take care of it. I sighed happily, relieved. Oh, God, that's a big relief to hear. He added, the information will get out. I'm amazed it hasn't come out already with the reaction there at the hospital. I don't want you to feel responsible for anything that's said when it does. I said, oh, I won't. I haven't told anybody except Mom and Jackie, and they're utterly reliable as far as confidentiality. He said, you'll hear every diagnosis and prognosis in the world when the word does come out, Dee cautioned. I'll tell you, or Carolyn will tell you, the facts of my case. Everyone else is going to be guessing. I said, okay, I feel a whole lot better. He said, that's why I'm calling. Another party called back from back east, all upset, saying the creation had told her I canceled because of throat cancer. I knew that couldn't be right. So I called creation, and they told me they were telling folks I canceled due to illness, and fans have taken it from there. I said, I see. He said, so you can stop worrying about me. I said, okay, I will. I loved your note this morning, by the way. He added, you did you? I said, it cracked me up. He paraphrased the note. You can keep the cheap stuff. I'll hold on to the rest, and laughed. I did too. Mom and Dad came down for the holidays again in 1997 while they were here. And while they were here, I got Mom an appointment with the preeminent brain cancer surgeon, Dr. Keith Black at Cedars-Sinai Hospital, after reading a wonderful article about him in Time magazine. Black had been the cover boy in an extensive article about new brain cancer treatments. And I thought, if we can get Mom in to see him, it may be just the miracle we need. Dr. Black agreed to see her. He was friendly and agreed that if the current protocol in Seattle began to fail and she wanted to move down here for further treatment, he would accept her as a patient. He did tell us, though, that the Seattle program at the University of Washington was one of the best cancer research programs in the nation, and that it was every bit as state-of-the-art as his program. He assured us that her care to date had been excellent, according to the records he had received, and that he probably would have done no differently than the doctors in Seattle had. He also made a point to tell us there is no cure for this type of cancer. The best we can do is buy some time and try to retain as much quality of life as possible. On December 7th, Dee called. I was surprised because Carolyn most always made the calls. He said, hello, Kris. This is DeForest. I'm calling to let your mother know how thrilled I am to hear about her visit to Cedars-Sinai to speak with a physician there. I said, she's right here. Do you want to speak with her? He said, yes, I would. She got on the line and said, hello, good morning, Dee. He asked if Dad and I were taking good care of her, and she said yes. He chuckled at that. She said she was happy to know she can relax for a few months. I'm getting a little tired of being a guinea pig, but if it helps someone else down the line, I guess it'll be worth it. He told her she was in their thoughts and they wished her all the best. She said, thank you very much. I know that, and I appreciate your concern and caring. When I got the phone back, I asked him, how are you doing? He said, oh, all right. I'm too mean and stubborn to die. I said, you are? Mean and stubborn? You sure have me fooled then. He said, yes, I do, and chuckled at that. I added, if there's anything you need, I'm only 4 miles away, ready, eager, and willing. He said, no one knows that better than I do, better than we do. I said, good, I'm glad. He said, thank you. I then sensed he was getting tired or had run out of topics. So I said, thank you for the calls. Thank you for the calling. Hug each other for me. He said he would, and then added, hold on a minute. Carolyn wants to speak with you. When Carolyn got on the line, she said, Dee got up this morning and said, I want to call Dorothea today. I said, I'm glad she did. I'm glad he did. She's grinning ear to ear. It was a lovely conversation. Dee's voice sounded better than it had in recent days, but he still sounded a bit weak to me. This ends happy, guys. Come on, I know I'm. That week, I ordered a sterling silver posy ring for Dee for Christmas. Encircled on the outside was a series of raised stars, which reminded me of the Walk of Fame. Best of all, as if it had been written just for that occasion, engraved inside were the words in Old English, many are the stars I see, yet in my eye no star like thee. The moment I saw it, I thought, boy, this is the perfect ring for a star polisher to give to her favorite star. It would have added significance for Dee, I knew, because I worked at a studio and saw stars all the time, and none had made the impression on me that he had. On December 18th, I called the Kellys to thank them for the Christmas tin of popcorn they had sent us. Dee answered the phone, and he sounded good. I told him we'd enjoy the popcorn while I was on vacation watching movies at home. Dee thought my vacation week was that week, but I said, no, it's Christmas week next week. He asked about my job, and I told him I love the people, but the work itself is completely uncreative and really boring. I'm getting antsy to find something a little more compelling, something that involves some real creativity. He said, you should be doing something that challenges you in ways you want to be challenged so that it feels worthwhile and is fun. You're more valuable to Warner Brothers than they know if they'd use you in the right way. Then he said, but who knows? If you stay right there, you might be head of the studio someday. You just never know. I laughed at that and said, right, Dee, just what I always wanted. You and Dad, I swear. He chuckled and then said, it's strange the way things work. Don't underestimate yourself or what fate has in store for you. It can really surprise you. I thanked him again and told him I loved him, and we hung up. The posy ring arrived in the mail the next day, and I delivered it to the Kelly mailbox on Christmas Eve in the dark. So there was no way Dee would be able to open it until Christmas morning. On Christmas Day, the phone rang, and I couldn't wait to pick it up. Dee, Merry Christmas. No, I picked it up and I said, Merry Christmas. Dee said, how art thou? I said, I art fine. He said, I guess you already know I love that ring. I wish I'd found it first. I would have given it to you. Me, aha. Well, it seemed the perfect thing for me to give to you. Dee, of course, I'm going to love those candy bars too. Perhaps I can even get Carolyn to give up a few of hers. I said, probably, but that's up to her. Dee chuckled and said, how's your mom? I said, fine, real great. And Dee said, and your father? I said, oh, not so good. He's a sick boy, coughing all night, aching all over. Maybe he has the flu. Dee, pour down the NyQuil. Me, he can't, unfortunately. He's diabetic. He isn't supposed to take that stuff. Dee, oh, well, he's in the best of hands, yours. I said, if he'd listened to me. Dee chuckled. I said, I camcorded some of the package opening last night so the sisters can share the holiday later since I get mom and dad this year for Christmas. Dee said, I'm glad no one's taken any pictures of me today. I surely do love that ring. I said, I'm glad, really glad. I did too. Duh. Dee laughed and said, hold on, here's Carolyn. Carolyn came on and said, Merry Christmas. I said, Merry Christmas. Carolyn said, I was doing something else for a minute there. That's why Dee got you first. Me. Okay. Carolyn, thank you for the candy. Dee loves his Trader Joe's chocolate bars too. I said, Dee wants yours too. She said, I know he does. I might share a few. Thank you again for everything. We are sweetly buried in your kind thoughts. I said, I'm glad. Enjoy. I love you. She said, bye-bye. And I said, bye. Okay. Okay, that's enough of that. One of the particularly interesting things that came from all of this of being able to help Dee at the end of his life, and Carolyn for several months after that, was that the encounter at Far Point, his 38-second thing, where at the end he says, well, it's a new ship, but she has the right name. You treat her like a lady and she'll always bring you home.
Bring you home.
That has gained extraordinary significance for me because he always treated me like a lady, and I was able to help bring him home at the end of his life, you know? So anytime I see that thing, it really affects me for a number of reasons, but that's the chief reason that it does. And I had a t-shirt that said that. You treat her like a lady and she'll always bring you home, because I was able to do that after all these many years of them encouraging me and helping me. That to be able to help them at the end of their lives was huge for me. And I feel very blessed. It was hard. It was really hard, but it also proved to me that they really did trust me, really, really trusted me, because you don't invite somebody in to die with you unless they trust you pretty implicitly. So anyhow, that came out of the book, maybe for obvious reasons. I mean, it's not exactly an upper, but you can see he's at the beginning, he's kind of in a way lying to me, because mom has these issues. I can't tell her I have issues too, because then she's going to be torn between what do I do. So he just kept mum about it until she passed away. And even then he waited months and months to have me come in and start helping him. And that was his heart. He didn't want to put me in a position that would overwhelm me. And looking back on it, again, I didn't know how that trajectory of that thing was going to work, but looking back on it, I see what he was doing. He was protecting me so that I wouldn't get overwhelmed by the fact that, because I lost my mother, Dee, and my dad in a 14-month period. And if I had known that ahead of time, I might not have made it. You have to take one day at a time. And so anyhow, there you go. That's some of what came out of the book. Could they tell if you have had a previous life? I don't think so. I don't know if they go into that kind of speculation. But I have a couple of memories that did not come from this life. In one, I think I was a male in World War I, going into battle. I was running down into some kind of a deep gorge type place in a battle, and I had a gun, and I headed down into this bowl. I want to say this bowl in land, and that's the last thing I remember. I don't know if I was killed at that point or whatever, but I have that memory. And then I also have a memory of being a little Jewish girl during World War II. And when I was a kid, they had a May Day parade, and they wanted to put armbands around us. And they put it around, and I threw it off. I threw it off because I saw and this was before I'd seen the Nuremberg trials. This is way before I had been exposed to any of that. I felt that Nazi symbol on my arm, and I threw it off. I said, I can't wear that. I can't wear that. And I was not a rebellious child. I was about the most, obedient child there was. But at that moment, it was like, no, I can't do that. I can't wear that. So I think I've had previous lives, but it's speculation. We are here now. Okay.
Yeah, they were out. They took Megan to go see Santa, and then they had to do a couple of errands.
All right. Thank you so much for helping me deal with the guilt over my grandfather's passing. I still occasionally feel like that. However, I think of what you and DeForest said in your book. I don't know. We all. I don't know how many of us have gone through end of life care for a loved one, but it's one of the most, I don't want to say stressful. It's anxiety provoking, because I can't do anything to make this end any differently than it's going to end. Okay. I can only make what's happening in front of us right now as comfortable and fulfilling and fun as possible. And a lot of what came out of that book is Dee and I basically keeping each other's spirits up during these last few months. We would joke. I mean, there were times we would sit and talk about dying and cry. But there were also times we were absolutely, practically in stitches laughing, because as far as I'm concerned, the nurses would sometimes say, now don't you give him false hope. I said, there's nothing at all false about hope. All of his affairs are in order. He doesn't are in order. He doesn't have to do another darn thing. Why in the heck should we put a tag on his toe before he dies? Let him live until he dies, basically. And so, I mean, if he wanted to talk about, planning in the spring or doing a convention when I feel better or whatever, I think I'm going to beat this thing. Well, if that's, you let them continue to have aspirations and hopes and plans and goals. You don't say, well, yeah, oh, there was one time I kind of put the kibosh on something. He said, I think I want to buy a Jaguar. I want to buy a Jaguar, a car. And he's in the hospital already.
I thought you meant a real Jaguar, like the animal.
And I went, I gave that a lot of thought. I thought, the man is in the hospital and he's terminally ill and he's not coming out of the hospital. Okay, Kris, take a deep breath. He was serious and he wasn't demented and he wasn't having issues. He just thought he would like to have a Jaguar. And so I said to him, okay, if that's your fondest wish in all the world, why don't we go ahead and get you a Jaguar? And then I let it go for a few beats. And then I said, but you realize, don't you, that the insurance on a brand new Jaguar is going to cost, and I don't know, they were always very frugal, even though they had money. You realize what the insurance on a Jaguar is going to run you, probably $1,000 a month. Oh, forget it. Just forget about it then, and I kind of talked him out of it that way. But that was the only thing where he came up with something this was like outlandish. And I went, whoa. Otherwise, if you wanted to talk about doing conventions or planting his garden or anything he wanted to talk about, we talked about it and let him continue to live.
Was he a car guy?
Not particularly. He had the one car, the Thunderbird, for years and years and years and years and years until it became unreliable. And then they got the Lexus, which they had until he passed away. And they only put 6,000 miles on that. By the time I started driving him around, and there was no driving after he passed away. So, yeah.
Kind of wonder what made him think then, yeah, I want this expensive car.
Yeah,
I'm not a car guy, but I want an expensive car.
I don't know. But it was like, okay, just, I'm not going to say no, but, give him a reason not to do that. You're not going to be driving that thing, D. I can just pretty much guarantee it. I didn't want to say that because sometimes he'd come in and go, they keep talking about me being terminally ill. Whenever they say that, I just can't believe they're talking about me. That was his attitude. And I thought, that's a wonderful attitude. That is a really wonderful attitude. And I didn't want to put the kibosh on that because he got to live to the end of his life. He got to really live. He didn't have to sit there and get bashed over the head with, you're not going to live very long. So how much have you missed? Well, you can come back, Tina, and hear it later. I just did a big, very long reading from my first book. And if you want it, I can also send it to you, Tina, in a Word document so you can translate it. Because she's just learning English. Yes, it is stressful.
I can't tell. She's very good.
Yeah. Yes, she is very good. She's doing her English teacher told her that too. She's been improving since we've been chatting and stuff. So it's all working. It's stressful and rewarding. Absolutely. Wishing you both a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you again at the end of the year. Yes. Oh, it looks like she's no updates on Celestis. No. They told me last I heard it was going to be in January. I haven't heard anything different. Again, they're having some rather unseasonably weird weather in Florida, and the atmospheric conditions have to be just right for a launch. So they're playing it by ear. They have to, know that there's at least, I want to say, a 10 day window of opportunity where they can reliably launch a mission. And right now, with the weather in Florida being so wackadoodle for this time of year, that's, I think they're having a hard time deciding when it should be. It may push it off to February. Yes, I will definitely let you know. Keep an eye on my Facebook page, because if, say, tomorrow they tell me something and I don't meet again with you for 2 weeks, it'll be on my Facebook page. As soon as I know anything at all, I'll put it on my Facebook page. And you will be able to watch it as it happens on Celestis.com. And it will be on the national news. It's going to be a big story. So you won't miss it.
We already have something to look forward to in 2023 then.
Yes. Wishing you both a very Merry Christmas. Yes. I wish you a very, very Merry Christmas. Yeah, you know what? We won't get together again until after Christmas now. So, any other comments? I know we've already gone an hour because I read for so long. Are there any other questions or comments? We got still have 8 people on NDB Media.
I don't see any comments on Facebook.
I don't either. So I guess we'll just call it a day, and we'll wish everybody a Merry Christmas and I'll wish you a Happy New Year on New Year's Eve. I hope you enjoyed this. Yeah, this wasn't as uplifting, but it gave you some more insights and more time with Dee when we were actually having conversations. So I hope it's more of what you wanted. Let me know if it isn't. And is Sadie still there?
No.
Okay.
She got bored of being in my room.
Okay. Well, anyhow, I hope you guys will join me tomorrow. Oh, let me put up that banner again. That's a really long number. But you can also, as soon as we end here, it will be up as a replay, and you can freeze it and write that down. If you want to read more about my relative, the mummy Juanita, there is a allthat'sinteresting.com mummy/Juanita/lady/of/AMPATO. And she's also on Wikipedia. So how cool is that? And also, remember to keep watching the DeForestKelly.com site for the auction items. I think right after the first of the year, the clothing will start going up. Heidi has been caught COVID, and she had a hard time getting back into gear, but I think she's working on staging those now. And shortly after the first of the year, you'll start seeing the clothing coming. All right. I guess that's it. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Hannah, for hanging in there.
Thank you, Kris.
And we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Can you hold on for just a second?
Yeah.
Oh, there's one more comment. Let me see. Merry Christmas to you both, and a very Happy New Year. And to all who join in here, who we don't really know, but sort of know, best of everything and good health. Absolutely. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Joyous Kwanzaa. Now that I'm this international being, I want to catch all of the holidays between now and then. You take care. We'll see you in 2 weeks, everybody. Love ya.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.